That is the quietest garage door I've ever heard.
Oh my God, these things are stealthy. I was literally standing behind it one day, and he opened it up, and I literally didn't even hear it. I was on the phone and like leaned back against it and like fell into the garage.
Hey Dave, how you doing?
Hey Mel, good. How are you doing?
Doing well. It's been a very eventful week over here. How has yours been?
It's been just crazy busy, and you tell me first what's going on with you.
Okay, let's see. To begin with, I broke down and did it. I got the jab.
You got oh wow, good for you.
Well, I did. I finally heard a reason that I could get behind. And we're going to Florida in 2 days. So I didn't want to come back with it. You know, my mom is elderly and she has some health issues. And so, you know, I'm doing it mostly for her protection.
Okay.
But I did hear a convincing argument in that, and you know, I work for a medical company. And so I heard this in a company-wide meeting. And then I also heard it on a trusted news radio station that we have here locally the same day. And then I looked at the study because that's what I do. And so this is what was convincing is that, okay, so 60% chance if you get it, that you're not going to contract the Delta. Now you may get another variant down the road, whatever. But 40%, yes, there is a chance, which is a high percentage, but the odds of it being a severe case, very low, and death, you can pretty much take off the table.
Right.
And I was like, you know, okay. And then also, I think it was the Dan Bongino show. He was reading Samuel Clemens. I think it was him. In the 40s, he was talking about we were predestined to die before we were born. And most likely when we go out, it's going to be in some horrible fashion. So just go with
days and sunshine on, give it a go.
But you know, just so enjoy life while you can and stop being so afraid of everything.
Okay, that's how it works. That's good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I gave it a go. I got the jab against my better judgment. To be honest with you, because you know I've done some research and whatnot on how the mimic protein works, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, but it's gonna, you know, it affects your DNA." It doesn't, because your DNA is in your nucleus, the cell nucleus, and you're getting shot in the arm, not in a cell nucleus. And it also doesn't change anything. It teaches the body to fight something. So like I said, it's like, what the hell? Okay.
I mean, we are probably one of the only media outlets, let's just call ourselves that in an optimistic kind of way.
Yeah.
That literally we're willing to change our mind. You know?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Well, I was never anti-vaccine. I was just vaccine hesitant.
Yeah.
And I just wanted more time, and I would still like more time, but given the situation, decided to give it a go. And we'll just have to see how it goes. I mean, but I will tell you, I woke up this morning, my arm is very sore. I feel like I got hit with a baseball. And you're not supposed to feel sick until your second shot. I have felt like shit all day.
No, I think the first day you'll feel crappy after your first
God. I mean, I'm nauseous. I feel fevery. I've been hot and then cold.
Maybe you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a look of I'm going to kill you.
That's come and gone. Come and gone.
All righty.
Second thing is I got promoted today.
Awesome. Congratulations. Fantastic.
Thank you. So hard work does pay off, people.
That's great. Good deal.
I know. I was very excited. It was somewhat of a surprise. It was very nice. Very nice. So how was your week?
It was very busy. Since the last time we were on this, I don't think I mentioned that I signed up to actually do a race in Colorado, and I'm leaving on the 4th to spend a week out getting acclimatized in Colorado. And it's on the 10th we check in for what's called tech inspections, and then on the 11th we take off for 4 days and 600 miles across the
Unreal.
wilderness. And it's the first time there's been an AMA sanctioned rally, motorcycle type of rally that uses traditional, the kinds of rules that are implemented in other parts of the world. That actually, it's been 25 years or something like that. I was told by an AMA guy that 25 years ago they were doing these, but yeah, it's been a very long time. And my Morocco trip got canceled. So rather than go, the COVID shut it down. They can't get in there to do all the work to build the maps and the instruction books. So now I was like, well, you know what? I need to keep on progressing and getting better at this. So, I might as well just sign up for this and give it a go. Give it a go. Right. So with that meant I had to get a motorcycle really fast, and I had to find, and it's crazy right now because it's hard to find these things. And I searched for 500 miles around and I couldn't find anything. And then I was going to go ahead and call the local dealership and find out what their timeline was for getting one of these, because it'd just be easier to work locally. And when I went to their website, I sure enough found one that had not posted to Cycle Trader for the broader search. And I'm like, you guys got to be kidding. You guys have this in stock? And I said, it was like meant to be. So I went down, put some money on it and bought this thing. And I've been frantically building it up into a rally race bike. And so that means that there's,
well, I keep seeing you post all your little cool gadgets and stuff.
Yeah. So this is, apologies to everybody listening right now. This sport is so unknown in the United States. It's very popular everywhere else. No one knows about it. But
even
anyway,
Poland.
What?
Even Poland.
No, but anyway, yeah. So so what this is you don't have maps or GPS, but you have a set of instructions that you have to follow, a compass and odometer readings to find your way across, let's say, 600 miles of terrain out in the wilderness. And so you're constantly looking down and trying to figure out your next instruction. And you have a scroll of paper that you're scrolling forward for each set of instructions. And, you might scroll and it'll have like a caution thing. And then all of a sudden at kilometer, 122.5, all of a sudden, sure enough, that caution is right there, and you hit, some massive bump or something. And all of a sudden you then have to roll your odometer to make sure it matches the book, so that, you're always fine tuning where you are. And it's a lot of stuff. It's like texting and driving. So if you're good at that, this is for you. But
that's right, millennials.
I know, right? So anyway, so I've got that going on, and I'm just frantically scrambling to get all the pieces in place, because there's a lot of requirements. I have to get like little GPS trackers, separate GPS. Just all this stuff is super expensive and it's killing me. So
sorry, but you wanted to do this.
I did. I know what I signed up for. But the good news is that once this is under my belt, then the expenses start to drop, and then it's just a matter of just here and there, this and that, and kind of things. So I tell myself. But anyway,
one good thing about that, especially with this show, is that when you have a dream to do something like that, it's not always easy, and you got to push through it, and you got to, in your case, budget for it, and keep, piece at a time, in order to give it a go. And that's okay.
Well, in this case, I'm spending money I don't have, but you know what? I'll catch up with it, I hope. But anyway,
remind me of our government.
Yeah, that's I'm a little more efficient with how I spend it.
And there it is. All right. So what are you drinking tonight?
Oh, wow. Well, tonight I'm going to go bougie again, and I'm going to go back to having I'm going to be doing that Negroni again. So what is in a Negroni? I should find out the history of the Negroni. I think it's Italian.
It sounds like it.
It sounds Italian, and it's got a lot of Italian stuff in it. Anyway, so sweet vermouth. Actually, let's start with the alcohol first. So the first thing we start with is gin. And it's very easy to do it. It's exactly equal parts. That's why I like this drink, because it's 1 part gin, 1 part sweet vermouth. In this case, I'm using Dolan sweet vermouth. And let's see. And Aperol or Campari, or just go find these Italian liqueurs that are red, and they'll work for you. Campari is kind of bitter. Aperol is a little sweeter. This seems to kind of split the difference. I seem to like this brand called Aperix.
Yeah. Well,
But,
as viewers hopefully know by now, Dave likes his sweet drinks. So you do. You like sweet drinks.
just a little bit, yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway.
It's what softens all that manliness, that toxic masculinity you've got.
I'm cutting it with a Negroni. What? Okay. This drink just screams it, doesn't it? No. Anyways, all right, here we go.
Oh wait, I gotta pour mine. So I'm going back to
Oh, your Bacardi
and
Bacardi and probably your Diet Zevia Cola.
yes. Yes. Zevia. It is your friend.
Mm-hmm. We should be, I don't know, someday in the future, let's say we have 1 million followers or something, and this
Oh.
particular episode, people go back and watch, and next thing you know,
Right.
we're up to 100,000 views. Man, Zevia needs to kick in a little something.
That's right. That's right. God knows I've given them thousands.
I
All
know,
right.
right?
Well, cheers, Dave.
Cheers. Oh, look how bougie I am. I've got a
you
monogram
got the
glass.
well,
That's
okay. Now I'm over the top because I've got the Dave and Mel glass and T-shirt tonight. So
oh my gosh.
I'm
Team player.
overproducing.
You're a team player.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Dave,
Man, that's good. Yes.
first time. It is one of your friends that is our
Yes.
guest this evening. Do
Yes.
tell us a bit about him.
So Christopher is, I've gotten to be friends with him over various meetings. He's part of my car community. And again, my weird obsession with strange motorsports is that our car community is composed of people who like to do outlaw racing across the country. So he is part of our Cannonball community and is just a very interesting guy, has a lot of amazing stories. If you ever want to see more or hear more of his stories, he's on VinWiki. Here it's VinWiki, which is a fantastic channel where people tell stories about their cars and their exploits around cars. And Michael is probably Christopher is one of the best storytellers, I think, on that channel. So I just reached out to him and I said, hey man, would you like to tell some stories with us? And I really want to get to know him better. That's the thing, we have these kind of casual conversations and just hang out and stuff, but and we've talked about things we want to do or what we're doing, but I haven't really gotten into his background, and I kind of want to find out a little bit more about who he is and what he's all about. And here he is.
Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very happy to have you.
Yeah, so I was just talking to Melina and telling her about what that you and I have met just a number of times, that you're part of our outlaw road racing community who likes to
You are a fellow criminal, Dave.
I would like to cross the country as fast as we possibly can. So but in all of our talking and stuff, it's like, we want to kind of get to know, let's get a little bit more backstory, because unlike, you've had a number of appearances on VinWiki and they've been just awesome. I think you're one of the best storytellers on that channel. You never get a good context for kind of your background and some other stuff. And so what I was hoping we could do is just kind of start from the beginning, where you're from and what's up.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. I'll give you the short version. I was born at a young age, that sort of thing. Well, I grew up, pretty broke in a tiny little town up in Northwest Georgia, and didn't have a lot of views of the outside world other than, the 3 little channels that we got on the tiny little black and white TV that was watching whatever my dad wanted to watch. and National Geographic magazine. So as a kid, I would pour through those magazines. I would pull all the maps that would come in the center. And my brother and I shared this little attic room, and the roof kind of sloped in. I just wallpapered it with all these maps from all over the world. I used to just lay there in my bunk bed and just stare at all these places and just think like how cool it would be to drive to all of them and see them, and not just, fly there in a jet, but to drive through and to really get to experience them and see the sights and smell the smells and all of that. So I think that just fueled a love of travel and adventure for me. I was I lived in a family of people who none of them really liked cars or anything. They were kind of more woodsy, folksy kind of people, but I was just into burnouts and explosions and heavy metal and everything. And anyway, I just always loved cars. When I was 10 years old, I wrote and illustrated a little kid's book, and it got published, and I had just enough money to buy a $100 1966 Chevy truck and an old dirt bike.
Wow.
So I proceeded to try to be the Dukes of Hazzard as best I could with that thing on our farm. I was making ramps with the tractor and trying to do side wheelies and jumping stuff and spinning out, and just loved everything having to do with cars. And but at the same time, I loved drawing, and my entire life, all I ever wanted to do was drive cars fast and draw pictures. And here I am 47 years later, I draw pictures for a living and build fast cars for racing around. So I feel very fortunate to have
That's
fulfilled
fantastic.
my childhood dream. So I went to this little school, got out of high school to discover that the school system I was in was so garbage that I wouldn't even qualify to get into the college I wanted to go to. So I was auditing math classes and things at a local community college, just whatever I had to do to get there. I went off to school, had no money. I sold my truck, sold everything I had. I was working as a construction worker by day, going to evening college classes, and then working as a security guard all night and sleeping every third day.
Wow.
And I did that. I was in art school actually at University of Georgia, and just hanging on by my fingernails. I had about 80 cents of disposable income a month. So anytime I found a girl I wanted to date, I had enough money for like 2 milkshakes and a whole lot of talking. So that's probably where I got good at telling stories, because I just had to be entertaining because I didn't have any money to do anything. So, I was in college, and the way, it was back then, this is the very early 90s. So, computers were kind of a new thing, professional world. I was a traditional artist at that point. I had been supporting myself with a sign painting company since I was 16 years old, just painting window signs and businesses and, painting murals and that kind of thing. And I still did that, when I had spare time in college. But nonetheless, I thought at the time that graphic design might be a solid way to make a living. I mean, I wanted to just do sculptures and art and things, but I didn't know how to make money at that. So I thought, okay, I'll get a job at some ad agency or a newspaper or something like that. So I'll go to graphic design school. Well, the way UGA worked at that time was you took like 2 years of core art classes, and you kind of saved all of your work. And then after 2 years, you would submit that body of work to the school to be considered to get into the graphic design program, which would then be the kind of latter half of your college time. Well, I saved all my work. I worked really hard. And 2 weeks before I was due to turn all that in, somebody upstairs from me in my dormitory got drunk, passed out, sat on the drain, and proceeded to flood like 7 floors of our dormitory. And it just destroyed 2 years of work. I mean,
oh my God,
paintings and artwork were just They were all under my futon in my dorm room. They were just melted into this one big soggy lump. And I was devastated.
That's a way bigger than the dog ate my homework story right there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This is two years of sleeping every third day, and eating water on paper for dinner, and just kind of, I was so broke then. I used to go through the newspaper and I would look for churches that were having homecomings, and I would show up on Sunday pretending like I used to go to school there, and just to get it was embarrassing, the kind of stuff I would do just to feed myself. So I went to the art school and I told them what had happened, and this had happened on school property. So I thought maybe they would cut me a break, and their words were, sorry, kid, if we gave you a break, then that wouldn't be fair. And I asked him, hey, can you just give me like a short list of paintings to do? Give me, 100 drawings, whatever I can do to get back in the ring. And they're like, sorry, you got to start over.
Oh God.
Yeah. And I couldn't afford to start over. Yeah, it was pretty devastating. So, I couldn't afford to start over, and I was just kind of lost at that point. Like, man, I've just invested 2 years of my life and everything I materially own. And, I love the movies. And this is right about the time when like movie special effects were starting to come on, and like computer animation with movies like Toy Story. And I think that one of the Terminator movies with the guy that's all like liquid metal. And that certainly seemed very cool, but I didn't know anything about that world. A friend of mine one night during this time said, hey, there's a computer up at the art building that can draw a picture. And, I didn't know anything about computers. I never turned a computer on. I'm thinking like, oh man, it's going to look like Pac-Man or something. But with no options left, I went up there and I went off on one of my off nights from the security job, and I turned it on, and it was like Photoshop 1, didn't even have layers or anything. And I didn't know anything. I had never used a computer. But I just started kind of with lack of options. I just started poking it with a stick and kind of figured out that I could actually make some artwork that looked like traditional artwork. It didn't look like Pac-Man as I thought. So I quit the security job and was even more broke, and just would go up there every night. Somebody at the art building felt sorry for me, gave me a key to the place. I'd go up there at night like the Phantom of the Opera and just play with this thing, trying to get it to make art. And I finally figured it out. And I thought, well, wow, I can do this. I could do, maybe I can make like backgrounds in movies or do digital matte painting or all this compositing. That kind of looked pretty cool. However, there was no art degree for that. The UGA had nothing like that. But I started asking around, and I found a few professors who were into the idea and got them to kind of point me in the right direction. I went to the University of Georgia and I said, hey, look, there's no degree for this, but I got an idea for a degree, and here's some classes that I wrote out. And, if I use these classes from these cinema classes from the film department, and these art classes from the art department, and these modeling classes from the sculpture department, then I think I could do this. And they said, well, sure, but, we don't think you're going to follow through on this. You got to find some professors who are going to back you on this. So then I went on this campaign of looking around, finding professors, and I found one professor that was into this new thing called the internet, and he wanted somebody to do graphics for him. And I found another professor that had this poetry book, and he wanted somebody to do some cover art for him. So I basically bartered my artistic skills to get these people to sign off on this degree I just invented. And I took it to the Board of Regents, and somehow I had meetings and begged and pleaded, and they finally agreed. And I proceeded to do this degree program using the 2 years of art classes I've already done. And I finished it. And I was actually, that was to my knowledge, I was the first person in the state of Georgia to ever graduate with a degree that I wrote myself. And I finished that, and I went on to work in the movie special effects industry for a while. And again, it was just one of those things that, I was fortunate to be able to turn a misfortune into an advantage, because, again, in the early 90s, there were so many people still clinging to traditional artwork that, this digital wave was coming. Yeah. And I figured it's better to be in front of it than behind it. And I just grabbed a board and hopped on, and it worked. So I did that for a few years. Creatively, it was a lot of fun, but with so many other people involved, you'd work 3 months on a scene and it would get cut for time, or you'd come up with a really great idea, but then some second unit director would come in and have a different idea. And it was just, the people I worked with were great, but I just wanted something a little more creatively fulfilling, I guess. So I had gone back to UGA, ironically, to speak at a career day there about what I had done. And another company that was there, had their software person over there. They saw my portfolio. I showed to the kids, and they called me up one day and said, hey, how'd you like to move back to Athens and start up this graphic design program for this internet company? Wow. I didn't know much about the internet, but, they asked me how much I made, and I lied to them and told them 15 grand a year more than I made. And I was going to need at least that much more to leave my job. And believe it or not, they went for that too. So there I was, early 20s, in the early days of the internet. started doing graphic design for them, doing web design, doing animations, doing the artwork, that sort of thing. And again, that was fun. It was long hours, but it was cool artwork to do. But then eventually that company, as many companies back then did, got bought up by some big corporate giant company.
Right.
And suddenly it went from, 9 or 10 artists in a loft somewhere doing cool stuff to people getting written up for saying soul food or getting in trouble and having HR meetings and this big corporate thing. So at that point, I really wanted to go freelance, and it always had. So I kind of saved up some money and jumped out of the plane basically and became a freelance artist. And I've been doing that for 20 plus years now. And
oh, wow.
So I've done everything from, graphic design, logo design, illustrations, tattoo design, body painting, custom car paint, airbrush and motorcycle tanks, just anything, sculptures, really whatever came along. I don't really have a particular medium that I do. I kind of love all of them. So I did that and basically used the money I made to build custom motorcycles and cars that I could drive fast on my own. Being an artist, that the old adage about being a starving artist is kind of true. I mean, at times, yes, you might make a lot of money in a month and think you're going to be rich, and then it's crickets for the next 3 months. So nonetheless, I just took the money I had and I'd save it up and blow it all on a big road trip. I'd save it up and blow it all doing my own little solo cannonball. I would save it up and blow it all racing motorcycles or drag racing a car or off-roading or whatever it was, tickled my fancy at the time. And over the years, I eventually just turned it into a real career until COVID came along. And, COVID kind of shut down my mural painting. At the time I was making most of my living painting murals in schools and restaurants and churches and, assisted live-ins, did a lot of cool kind of door disguise murals in there. So that people with memory issues didn't focus on the door and sneak out and get away in the middle of the night. So we would disguise the doors behind a big, fake bookcase or wood grain or whatever. So anyway,
Really?
going on, I was teaching art classes, having a good time. Then COVID came along and pulled the plug on all of that. About that time, I had, built a few trucks for myself, a few cars for some other people. And, I guess just staying fluid with it. Because artwork was all shut down, or at least me getting into the places I was painting in was shut down, I started building cars out of my garage. And then that's how I ended up here. So currently I'm building illegal race cars for the, scofflaw, outlaw, road Dave and I do. There's one behind me, actually. This is Bradley's Shrekmobile, which is a 1970s Suburban. We thought it'd be fun to turn the most inappropriate vehicle possible into a do-it-all race car. So we've been working on this thing for a while. So
well,
anyway,
I've seen some of the specs on what you're putting into that. It's going to be pretty impressive when it's done.
It should be pretty fun. It's going to have lots of horsepower, lots of fuel capacity, and still be pretty obnoxious. A lot of the guys, you, Doug, Arnie, a lot of y'all have done these things in somewhat stealthy vehicles, which I think is a thoroughly good idea. There's nothing stealthy about this thing. So I think we're just going to go for charm. We're going to print out stickers and t-shirts and just be like, hey, congratulations, you pulled over the Shrekmobile. Here's a t-shirt.
And to give people kind of some history, that car actually competed in the C2C race a few years ago. The story of the Shrekmobile during that race was it holds like the record now for like the slowest cannonball. Like
exactly. I believe it's 103 hours and change.
Well,
And,
oh my God. Well, it is very stealthy looking, so I can.
Well, it had nothing to do with pullovers, unfortunately. Just mechanically, this had been a show car for like the magazines back in the 90s. And it had been built more for show than go. So I think mechanically it put up a lot of protests. Bradley will occasionally, sort of self-deprecatingly make jokes about being the slowest cannonballer, but I always tell him that no, you didn't give up longer than anybody else has ever not given up.
Oh, that is such a great way to put it.
There you go. When life gives you lemons, go and make a filet mignon, right?
Absolutely. So Bradley did not give up. I admire his tenacity. And, I guess being a gearhead as a little kid, I've just been doing this stuff for 40 years now. I can build pretty much everything on a car. Bradley's a very capable mechanic himself. And the two of us together have gutted this thing. I don't know if you can see in the background. It's literally just a body shell and a chassis right now.
Yeah.
we have touched literally every single part of this truck.
Oh, wow.
The suspension is custom. I've fabricated a custom frame for it. We've built custom engine mounts, custom exhaust, custom turbo intakes, intercoolers, like everything on this car. Because it was such a modified show car to start with,
Yeah.
you can't buy anything off the shelf that fits this thing. So I've been making it, being a metal sculptor all these years, I have, welding and metal shaping, a lot of these skill sets, and it segues nicely into building cars. So we just have a good old time out here. I have the greatest job. I hang out with my friends and build cars all day, and then we go do ridiculous stuff in them, and that's even more fun. So
what a life.
Wow. Mel, did you hear that? Turbo intakes on that car.
I gotta tell you,
just a hint of what's to come.
As 8-into-1 exhaust on this thing.
Wow.
Man, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, I think I might even actually have the turbo right here.
How do you keep it cool?
Oh, big radiators, big intercooler. So here's a turbo for you. Actually, I think turbos are quite sexy. Actually, you got these. These.
That's a nice looking snail.
Nice looking. So yeah, we have all kind of fun parts around here.
That's awesome.
Keeping an engine like that cool, actually is not all that hard. With fuel injection, we can adjust the tuning on the fly. We've got a big intercooler. We've got a big radiator, big fans, and moving at the speeds that we run, there is this magical tipping point. Dave could probably graph it out and tell you specifically, but, the point where
Dave, I expect that graph so we can post it. Okay.
Exactly. There is a tipping point between the heat you're generating and the heat that your cooling system is able to give off. And as long as you stay on the right side of that, you can go all day.
Yep.
Wow.
That's awesome. So you finished up at UGA and then immediately after that, you started doing work in the film industry. So what was there? Well, first of all, was there anything that we've seen or know about, or, and secondly, like what types of stuff were you doing?
Well, being a painter and a sculptor, I was always into, shapes and colors. I'm not a technology guy. I do know how to 3D model and animate and all that. I'm a very visual person, but the stuff I was doing was like backdrops and skies and like flame effects. Because I painted enough flames on guitars and hot rods and tattoos and things that, so a movie like Species 2, for example, back in the day, anytime you saw, the character, anytime there were some computer modeled flames or supposed to be off camera, I would animate the flames that you saw on part to make it look like it's in the same environment with this flare over here, these fire, that type of thing. Or I would do like the skies in Dogo's Journey, things like that. The thing with a movie is that every time you see a scene, so many people work on it. There's 120 people all doing a little bit of it. So I did a lot of skies. I did a lot of stuff for, a lot of commercial stuff. Like I did a few of the star backgrounds that were in some of those fun little Coca-Cola commercials with the polar bears, in the skies back there. I didn't do the bears or anything, not the cute part, but I did a lot of atmospheric effects, textures, flames, things such as that. But nothing really big time. I mean, it was not a huge company, really great people, but nothing fantastic. Just a lot of commercial stuff. Light shining through water, textural things like that. But I really wasn't in that industry very long, to be honest. I did enjoy it. I liked the people, but after about 2 or 3 years, I just realized that I was spending so much time doing artwork that either never made it to the screen or got changed by so many other people that it just wasn't that satisfying. And I don't, and I'm not it's not like some big ego thing, but just to work that many hours, to go in Monday morning and go home on Wednesday night, to be putting that many hours into something that really never sees the light of day, or it's just on there for a second. You're just like, oh, that's my sky. Oh, that's and you're sitting there in a movie theater watching 12 minutes of credits, hoping you see your name up there, and it just lists the whole team or the address or something.
You can't get too hubris about that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it wasn't an ego thing. I don't need to be famous. I don't need the recognition, but I guess I liked knowing that the work I was doing was getting used. It's kind of like, for example, I've got an old classic truck and I had a bunch of parts I've been saving for it, and it got broken into one time, and they stole all the parts. And that's not the point of the story. But the point is, like, if somebody had stolen all those parts out of that truck and left me a note and said, hey, I've got an old 1980 International Harvester Scout also, I needed your parts, that would have made me feel at least better knowing that they got used.
Mhm.
But thinking that they just got stolen by some tweaker who tried to take them to a pawn shop and they ended up sitting on the back of somebody's trailer somewhere, like, that drove me crazy to know that they didn't get used. So it was the same kind of thing with my artwork. Like, I don't mind doing the work. I don't mind not getting credit for it. I just want to know that the work I did saw the light of day, that there was some point to doing what I did other than it just ended up on the cutting room floor.
Totally understand that.
So that was kind of what motivated me to migrate out of that industry. Again, people were great, fun projects, but I just worked so much and saw so little of it ever be enjoyed, and it just wasn't as fulfilling. So I think I wanted to know that whoever took credit for my work, so long as it just got it's got to see the light of day, then that made me feel a lot better.
Let me ask you this. So did you do all your, because you had mentioned that when you were younger, you wanted to drive all these places. And I know that you actually did drive to a lot of places all over the world. Did you do that before or after this job?
Oh, that was all after this job. That movie job was from the time I graduated college when I was like 22, 23, until I was like 25. Okay. And I'm fixing to be 48. So we're talking about, 20 plus years of, road trips since then.
Oh,
and of course,
just a baby.
Out of school, I'm broke. I'm sorry.
I said, he's just a baby, Dave.
Well, the license plate on my truck saes all-nighter. And I stay up.
That's me. I sleep all-nighter.
Well, there you go.
I don't think that's what he's. I don't think that's what he's really implying, Mel.
Yeah, I am. I did actually have to sign an affidavit in the state of Georgia that there was nothing salacious or lascivious about that license plate. But I got that license plate because I stay up all night working. If I'm painting a mural or in a sculpture, or sometimes working on this thing, Bradley will get up in the morning and I'll still be out here welding sometimes. It's not that I have to. I just get in the zone and just go with it. So I figure, even though I'm 47, I've only slept on average 5 days a week, maybe 4 or 5 hours at a time. So I've actually been awake long enough to be in my early 70s.
Wow.
That's
so.
It's people like you. My dad was like that. He would only sleep like 4 hours. And I mean, Trump was like that. I mean, it just amazes me how people can be so energetic and skilled. I mean, most of these people are creators and build things, whether it's businesses or architects or whatever. I mean, my dad helped build the F-22. So yeah. And so, I mean, people like you absolutely amaze me, because ask Dave, every party I go to, who leaves first?
Mel does.
What time?
8:30, maybe
no,
9.
It's more like 9 to 10.
9.
I'm out.
Well, you're probably wiser for it, because I have this sinking feeling that I'm going to be about 58 or 59 and my quarter's going to run out.
Oh no.
And I'm just going to drop out. Like, I've probably, as the saying goes, the candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long.
Oh my God.
So, it's entirely possible that I'm just using up all of my years right now. But I guess I'd rather use them up while I'm young and can do stuff than, lay in a bed for 20 years when I'm old. So.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, I lay in bed now and I'm 51. So, but. And nothing salacious about that either. So.
Well, it's no, I mean, it's interesting. The idea, it's funny when you get engaged in something, and some of us are, better at it. Some of us will literally need to go to sleep exactly at the same time every night. And, some of us, when something grabs us, it just takes us into that space where you can't put it down. And I was telling Mel before you came on about how I've been building up this race bike that has a lot of technical components and things to get this thing ready for this race I'm doing in a couple weeks. And I've been up till 4 a.m. every night, and I'll wake up again each morning at 8 and go to work and do my stuff. And I come back and I keep working on it. And yeah, I'm tired at certain points during the day, but I know some people who cannot handle that aspect of just this. Well, someday I might be a little bit tired throughout the day. Big deal, and some people like have to have their sleep. And
oh yeah, I have
too.
I've been doing motorcycle trips with for years, and it's drove me. I mean, they're just going and going and going, and they're done. And that sort of thing, and Dave, you certainly know from doing these cannonballs and this endurance driving stuff that we do. You've got to be able to dig deep and be on sometimes for 36 hours straight. And you may have a co-driver or somebody there, but you're spotting, you're looking at it's sleeping in the car going 150 miles an hour. And to do some of these things, you've got to be somebody that can push through sleep. And certainly this Dakar endeavor that you have, I've done motocross racing. The Dakar is on my bucket list too. You were certainly farther along towards it than I am, but I don't believe there's a single sporting event on earth in any discipline that is more physically and psychologically demanding than that. You see these French guys that win it and they're just in tears because they have taxed their body and their mind to the limit. And I certainly admire you for taking that on, because that sort of, we can all sit comfortably in a car and drive 150 miles an hour all night, but to ride a motorcycle over difficult terrain with all the gear on and the risk and the sheer physicality. I mean, I race dirt bikes, you race dirt bikes, like, how physically demanding that is. And I remember when we talked after the Bandit Run award ceremony, you were getting into a fitness regimen, and you really have to push yourself. And I certainly admire you for doing it. It takes
I'm proud of him.
a lot more discipline than your average person has.
It's been interesting. It's interesting. Someone actually did say to me, they said, wow, you're still pursuing this? And I'm like, well, why wouldn't I be? Like, what? Why would
a lot of people quit and give up when it starts getting difficult, or when it gets expensive or physically demanding. And you've got all those things working against you, but it seems to spur you forward.
I like to have doubters. I like the fact that radiologist said you're too old to be riding a dirt bike.
Oh, I can't wait for you to send him the video.
Oh, I know. So yeah, that was when I posted the X-ray of someone of a hand that's flipping the bird.
That was I sent that to several friends of mine. That was a really great.
It's just like, what? If you're gonna say I'm too old to ride a dirt bike, well, here, look at this, buddy. Because you know what? I dedicate every broken bone I make, I dedicate to every guy who's over 50 who decides to take on something new like this. So
that's fantastic. That is fantastic.
Because I've got both of you. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying because I've got both of you here. I really would love for the two of you, because you both have experienced it. Walk our audience through, how do you mechanically, physically, mentally, not just prepare, but go through a Cannonball Run? And I know probably half of the audience, or maybe less, has even seen the movie, and a lot of them don't even know what it is. But walk them through that, because that's intense.
Well, let me set up then. If you feel like people don't really know what this is, I'll just kind of go back. That back in the 70s, there was a race established by an editor from Car and Driver, where he wanted to understand. There was, I guess, even further back in time, there was a guy who used to set these records driving across the country. And so this editor from Car and Driver said, you know what, I want to see what it's really like to drive across the country. How long would it take? And so he went out and did it, wrote an article about it. A bunch of people wrote letters saying, hey, I want to do this too. And so he created a race called the Cannonball Baker C to C Memorial Trophy Dash. And that spurned on four more events, four events throughout the 70s, called the Cannonball Baker C to C Dash. So they and then the very final one was what inspired the movie. And there truly was an ambulance. There were truly guys dressed as, and driving Ferraris and dressed as, Rolls Royces, and I mean all the craziness of it.
Yeah,
ride with Jackie Chan.
Ambulance with the fake patient in the back, and fake police cars and disguises, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, so look up the movie Cannonball Run, and it's as fictional as it looks. It was actually a real thing, and it was very similar in a lot of ways. Some of the characters in it were based on real people who did that, and so after that ended, there was some underground races that took off after that were these cross-country races in the early 80s called the US Express. And then, there were these couple kind of random things that happened as well. But then nothing happened for years until a guy named Alex Roy decided he was going to break the last record of the Cannonball. And he went out and built up a car and did this as a kind of a solo mission to try to break this record. And he did. And so his record was 31 minutes, 7 seconds, or it was 31 hours, 7 minutes.
Wow.
And then, and that was,
and
how
that's
I got
from New York to LA.
New York to LA, and
2,904 miles.
Yep.
Insane.
Yeah. And so I saw the documentary of his run. And when I saw it, I went immediately to the only guy I knew who was interested in rallying, this kind of long distance driving kind of stuff, Ed Bolian. And I said, Ed, look at this, man. This movie's awesome. We gotta let's set up a film festival. Let's get all the car guys in town to do this, and let's do a rally. And it's like, oh, let's not do a rally, liability issues and everything. And he goes, I'm gonna set that record. I'm like, yeah, bullshit. and he's like, no, seriously, I've got a car that's being built up right now. It's getting electronics put in it, and I'm getting fuel cells and everything. And I'm like, really? Okay. Who's your co-driver? And so kind of, that was what started that whole conversation for me to get into just Ed. And he had already, he'd had the whole thing already planned. And then probably 4 months later, 5 months later, he calls me up and he goes, hey, I'm going up to New York this weekend. And I thought that he was really asking me to go up and do spotting. Well, anyway, he wanted me to co-drive for him. So that's how I ended up being the co-driver with Ed. But the thing is that, the thing is that this record is really established as this place where Car and Driver's office was in central Manhattan. It's the Red Ball parking garage, very specific starting point to a very specific end point, which was the Portofino Hotel, which was owned by a friend of the guy who created the race. And it's right on the beach in Redondo Beach. So now we have Michael, Christopher and I have this kind of community that we're all sort of a part of, that organizes these races, but because it involves very, let's see, questionably legal activities, it's very underground. And so anyway, that's the history. But to Mel's question, I guess I'll let Christopher answer about how do you mentally do this stuff.
Well, historically, Dave, I couldn't have said it better myself. You are indeed a historian, and really one of the true OGs of the modern era of this, because, when you and Ed set that record, that kind of brought it into the modern time. I mean, a lot of us had done this run kind of on our own, just sort of to know we did it. But, inevitably there was some hiccup, something broke down, something happened. And, the two of you really made this a modern thing. And then we all kind of saw what y'all did and thought, well, man, if these guys are doing this officially, then we can do this too. And it kind of became a little more of an organized event, really thanks to you, Dave. I mean, you're one of the early guys that really did it, like I say, officially. And then, Ed, with his mastery of social media, kind of, making it all famous online. And then, that just kind of took off. And so, but yeah, you nailed it historically. Emotionally and physically, I guess the best way to describe it would be like, you see the old timey movies where the person's like hanging from the bottom rung of the ladder over the alligator pit, or they're hanging from the side of a cliff, and right. you just don't let go. And there's a point when your fingers are burning, you don't let go, and your arms are tired, you don't let go. Like, it just comes down to willpower. I mean, there's certainly times like my solo time, which was terrible. My solo time was like 43 hours because I got distracted halfway across, decided to drive through the painted desert because that looked really pretty. And I figured, oh, well, I'm here.
You got to stop and see the large ball of yarn. And
hey, exactly. Those large ball of string, leave some tag on the Cadillac Ranch, whatever it is.
To be fair, that's the Google Maps time to get across, to do that 43 hours. So the fact that you got some sightseeing inside of that, hey, you know what? That to me is a win.
I was in a rented Toyota Corolla with like no fuel cell and anything. It was just, I didn't even have a fighting chance. But regardless of that, I think, driving, I mean, I have certainly just I don't know how the best way to describe it. I mean, I have woken up in Winslow, Arizona, and driven to, you were in Atlanta. I've woken up in Athens, Georgia, drove to Detroit, had breakfast with my brother, did a lap around Lake Erie, and went back to my job Monday morning in Athens, Georgia. And I think there's a little bit of conditioning to it. You know, when I am driving and I'm 20, 30 hours in, you know, I'm not hungry. I'm probably driving with just half my brain like a dolphin. You know, it is just mentally and physically to do a drive like this. You just really, you know, one, you're doing something that you enjoy. You know, you watch little kids at a birthday party, they're just running around and having a good time and into the bouncy house and into the pool. And they're just having such a great time. They don't get tired until they're done. Then they pass out in the car. And you know, we love driving. We love the adventure. We love the challenge of driving quickly. We enjoy the challenge of aiding the police. We enjoy the challenge of logistics and figuring out our fuel stops and figuring out our timing and picking a route. And even though, you know, you're trying to make sure that you don't hit traffic in a town 1,000 miles away, so you leave at this certain time so that you get there after rush hour or before rush hour, you know, all those things. There's such a joy in that. We enjoy it so much that we are in that gleeful state in our mind. I think if you put one of those little, you know, the strainer with all the wires on it to monitor our brainwave, when we're 30 hours in driving at 140 miles an hour, our brainwaves probably look like those of a child playing with his friends. You know, we are having such a good time that we have that energy. Now, of course,
A lot of adrenaline.
You know, it is a little bit of adrenaline.
Well,
but as I have found,
actually, it's not, Mel. That's I'll get to that in a second, but keep going.
Oh, exactly. Like when I do these drives, I do not drink coffee. I do not do any caffeine. I do not take any kind of drugs or anything to keep me awake, because, you know, if you want to stay awake 4 more hours, sure, drink an energy drink. If you want to stay awake 2 more hours, sure, drink a big cup of coffee. But if you want to stay awake for 45 more hours, you're just going to crash that much harder. And you have to get to know your body. You have to get to a point where you can, I guess, just function through, just willpower yourself through that need for sleep. Now, certainly if it gets dangerous, if you're falling and nodding off, yes, you should have a co-driver. Certainly we do stop at some point and take a rest. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to risk somebody else's life doing this, but you really just have to dig deep in your body, like just like in the old movies of, you know, hanging on the ladder above the alligator pit. Like, you can't let go, and you can't stop, and you have to just push yourself through the fatigue. But you can do it. And if you are focused, if you're not thinking about, you know, the list of things you have to do at home, you're not thinking about, you know, your next move, you're not thinking about the job that you should have quit. You know, you're focused on driving. You know, when Rusty and I did the Bandit Run, which we briefly won until Dave and Doug came along behind us and beat us. But, you know, we had somebody ask us at dinner one night, well, you know, what kind of music y'all listen to? You know, or y'all, you know, don't y'all get bored being in the car? And I was like, no. Like,
At
there isn't a
140
moment.
plus, there's nothing to get bored with.
Absolutely not. We are spotting, looking for cars, looking for traffic, watching cops, looking at ways, checking other racers. Like, you know, you're focused, and you do have to have that ability to focus. You do have to have that ability to dig deep. You have to have that ability to want something hard enough to be uncomfortable, to be thirsty, to be tired, to be hungry. And none of us, I don't think, are masochists. We don't want to hurt ourselves. There's just a goal that is so important to us, the fulfillment of which means so much that we are just willing to push through. It's like the guys that climb Mount Everest, the guys that ski to the North Pole, the people that dive to the bottom of the ocean. Yeah, it's dangerous. Yeah, it's hard. No, it's not comfortable, but the reward of it is worth it. And I know Dave feels the very same way about this. You just have to want it. And it's a good metaphor for everything in our life. And that's probably why so many of us in this community of people do the other cool things that we do. You know, I've road tripped 51 countries. I've been around the world. Dave has done these races. He's preparing for the Dakar. Ed has built this social media empire with Car Trek. You know, Bradley has become successful in his career. Rusty, all of us. I think that same drive that fuels us to do these runs is the same thing that drives us to learn to play the guitar, learn to weld, learn to fly, learn to do whatever it is you do. And I think it's just
Well, what
I
was
think
it that you
first
said the
one
other
time-
night? You said the other night, you said anything worth doing is worth overdoing.
Yeah, well, that's a bit of a joke, but yes, if you're gonna go big, and if you're gonna push yourself all the way. And if there's something you want, find a way, make it happen. And it may not be easy, and it may be expensive, and there may be a lot of risk, but in the end of it, there's your reward. And I know for me, the biggest reward has not been going fast. It's been the community of friends that I've made amongst this. There's 50 people right now on my phone that are all friends of mine that all do the same crazy stuff. And we all get it, and we get together and we hang out, and we have cookouts, we go to dinner, or we just text each other funny memes, or we harass each other on Facebook. But I was never on a team. I was never in a fraternity. I was never somebody that was a part of anything until I had this community of these scofflaws and miscreants, because we all get each other. Like, I finally found my tribe of people that love cars so much, that love driving and love motorcycles and engines and speed and getting away from the cops so much that we're willing to do this. And that's been the greatest reward for me personally, is just getting to know all these people through these crazy events.